Brian O'Driscoll on Off the Ball
with Air Sport. Watch live Pro 14 action on Air Sport this season. Visit airsport.ie.
Brian, good evening. How are you?
Very good. Yeah, really good.
Good week. 2 days ago, I think you were at Easton Say was testimonial dinner. How did that go?
Yeah, it was great. Good to have him back in Dublin, in the province. Yeah, I suppose if any player is worthy of being honoured with a testimonial, he's right up there. So, yeah, he's back, new life in New Zealand. So he literally flew in a few days ago and had that dinner.
Any good yarns?
Yeah, like I was sitting at the table with him, just finding out what's going on with his new life. You know, the kids. He's got 4 girls, so how they're settling in. I think Simone, his wife, is quite happy to be back there. He's now in finance, which is something that he'd taken an interest in for 4 or 5 years. Issa kind of plays the cards relatively close to his chest anyway. So I think he wanted to just get his weekends back and get away from the game, and he's enjoying that, although he's still doing a bit of commentary on their Mitre 10 Cup then in New Zealand. So he looked in good form, nice and relaxed, hasn't put on any weight, not doing any cardio or any training really. So yeah, he's living the dream.
I think what happened to Bilbao, Brian, was fitting for the career he had at Leinster. Yeah,
like he's a big game player, and you know, I interviewed him for the show right at the end of the season, just before he went home, and I could see certain components to, as I saw in myself towards the end. You know your time. You know, even though
was he at peace with that?
Yeah, I think so. I think when others feel as though there might be more in you, you know yourself. You're the best judge of it, and it's body, but it's not wanting to get caught out as well. And I think him moving into 12, it suited him as well. There was a bit more security there, and I asked him about it, and he said absolutely preferred being there because you've got people either side. Wing can be in a vulnerable position against, a speedster or someone with quick feet and gas and rounding abilities. So I think he realised, how he could get the most out of himself in that final season. But he delivered big kicks at big moments. When Johnny tightened up, you never thought he was going to miss. And it's that sort of temperament you need in your leader and your key players when it comes to crunch moments. And yeah, it couldn't have been more fitting. It was unfortunate the manner in which he had to limp off in the final of the Pro 14. But in typical Issa style, there was no big fanfare. It was just done. Okay, calf's gone again, and off he went. You blinked and you would have missed it.
I'm just thinking there while you're speaking, Brian, about people in the workplace that have a leaving do and they're gone, and you don't really. It's kind of it's a closure almost. You've maybe had a great working relationship. Is it similar in rugby that it's almost like it's work, or the bond so deep, given what you've achieved and how you've soldiered together, that you're in touch with people a bit more?
I suppose you'll be in touch. Issa will remain in touch with some guys, but not everyone. A lot of these younger lads. I think that was also part of it. I think he probably felt quite a big disconnect. He was very friendly with Johnny and one or two others. Shane Jennings still pally with, but of guys that are in the winter of their career or have already retired. I think when there's a different language being spoken in the dressing room, it's hard to have the same involvement and have the same graw for being there. So I think you just know your time is there. Issa was always a bit old school as well. He, not a social media head, not someone that was egotistical or about branding himself. It was rugby and family, and he did both extremely well. Even in his time, when we were teammates, I can't count that many nights that I had out with him because he had his few pints and then he was home, and he was very much family orientated, and he was the model professional. And it's a really awkward one because I said it to him before the meal. I said, I'm going to enjoy your uncomfortableness today because having a meal in your honour doesn't sit well with most people. Yeah. But yet it's for everybody else. It's almost not for you. It's nice hearing people say nice things about you, but it's for everyone else to be able to laud the praise and for them to show how much you've meant rather than for you to soak it all up. We had one for Ian
Dempsey last week. Yeah, it was good.
Okay, right. Yeah. So, but yet you could tell, and I did a Q&A with Johnny Sexton and Leo, and we didn't have that many stories on Issa. We kind of had to take the piss out of one another. I had to go at Sexto a bit because, again, Issa's just a good lad and worked hard, and he's no skeletons. So there's very few you can say that about.
I have to ask you this. You were at Le Golf National this week, the Ryder Cup. You played it?
Yeah, I played 10 holes of it. I played the first 5 and 14 through 18. So it was pretty special. I got a call last week for there was a withdrawal, and I know the guy that organises it. I'd been at something else with him a few weeks previously, and we'd gotten on well. So he said, "Can you make it out on Tuesday?" And I couldn't get out of a couple of things that I had on Monday, so I flew on the 6:40 to Paris on Tuesday morning across town. Met my few teammates and met the opposition, and then played.
What the opposition was?
The opposition for our match was Samuel L. Jackson and Kurt Russell. And my partner was a guy called Danny Boone, who's a huge actor and comedian in France. And he was by far and away the most popular person on that golf course that day. Samuel L. Jackson was, at a high level. He was another level altogether. And he was a super nice guy. Really nice player.
No Pulp Fiction chat, no?
No. I had a bit of chat with Kurt Russell, all right, but Samuel, kind of just, he was kind of kept to himself and just doing a bit of chat for the crowd. But it was competitively serious. But we started out really well. We kind of came out all guns blazing. So I suppose it softened our cough a little bit.
You'll be watching on Sunday?
Yeah, Sunday's one of the best days of golf of every other year, and whatever about goes on today. I saw a bit this morning. First, I saw the first tee shot. It was funny watching Tony Finau. I was in the exact same spot as him. It would have been a backhanded shot or a left-handed shot by the water. So that's the only thing I have in common with Tony Finau.
But did you? I see you were wearing that the Ryder Cup top, was it?
Yeah. So I don't know if can you wear that again?
I think you can. Yeah.
I don't know. The talk was.
I was wearing one yesterday from 2006.
So okay, fair enough. I don't know. I don't know if. Because we were given golf bags as well, and I don't know if you can use that again. But it was. It's one of those that I look back and go, wow. I got to play the Ryder Cup course. 3 days before they teed it up, and it is in. It looks as beautiful. It actually looks better than it looks on the TV.
Wow. That's amazing.
In real life. So, manicured to within an inch of its life, and a real treat.
Well, folks, keep your comments coming in on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook and text this week. It could be named in our Heineken Star Comment of the Week, up for grabs. We got a pair of tickets to Leinster's Heineken Champions Cup home opener against Wasps on October 12th. So get your comments in now and during the week. And Brian, just before we get to the rugby, Conor Murray and obviously the games in the Pro 14 this weekend, there's a documentary coming out, Rugby United Ireland, on Monday. So tell us about that.
Yeah, I'd been filming a documentary for the summer called Shoulder to Shoulder. It's about rugby being a whole island sport, and particularly how it managed throughout the troubles of the 60s, 70s, 80s, and right up to the Good Friday Agreement. It comes out. It's launching in Belfast on Monday, but it comes out. It airs on BT Sport 2. At 10 o'clock, right after the Leinster Wasps game in the Champions Cup on this day week, so on the 10th. So, I'm excited about my first go at narrating something. It came from kind of a brainchild of mine and Craig Doyle's. Two of us set up a production company called Three Rock Productions. We did a co-pro with another group called TBI, and we both kind of amalgamated two concepts as to we wanted to do something on Ireland's call, and they kind of came with this approach, and then we threw a load of ideas into a hat, and we've produced Shoulder to Shoulder. So I hope people enjoy it. I think we've got some pretty powerful interviews and some pretty emotive stuff over the course of 50 odd years.
How did you feel about singing Ireland's Call?
I warmed to it. This bit didn't actually make the documentary, but I was talking with my mum on camera, and I remember when I was captain, I was used to sing Aaron Levine, and then Ireland's Call would come on, and I was like, Aaron Levine's really my anthem, so I didn't sing it for a few times, and my mum picked up on it.
She was watching live?
She was she was in the stands, and she was watching. She said to me after a couple of games, she said, you know, as Ireland captain, I think there's a responsibility on you singing Ireland's Call, whether you agree with it or not. And it's true, mums know best, and she was right. I did have a responsibility, just because I personally didn't feel as though it was my anthem. I thought it was my duty to try and be part of something that incorporates everyone.
So by the end,
so this only lasted for 2 or 3 games where I stopped singing it, and then I thought, I did sing it. I think it's more difficult to sing with the same gusto as Aaron Levine, because actually from a musical perspective, the timing and speed, depending on where you are, of how the band plays out Ireland's Call, nearly always the singing is ahead of the music. And the tempo is different depending on where you go. And you get used to it in Ireland. It's the same, our Tame Boys band. So you get used to what the sequencing is, and you try not get too ahead of yourself. In other countries, it can be crazy slow or super fast. So the timing is very, very rare. So that's probably why you don't get as much out of it, and also when you've grown up, with Aaron Levine being your anthem, it's always going to remain a little bit more special.
Yeah, that's fair enough. And Rugby on Off the Ball is, with thanks to Air Sport, the home of the game in Ireland. And the big item of the week, I suppose, Brian, probably Conor Murray. He's got a neck injury. He's been out since the 3rd test against Australia in July. Not played for Munster this season. We got Albion Mathewson being signed. He's playing tomorrow. We don't know the extent of this injury. Murray has refused to allow his private medical details to be released into the public domain under data protection rules. He can do that. Now, would this worry you that the injury is maybe worse than we think it is?
I'm trying to understand why players did that. And if I put myself into that position, I had a very serious neck injury. And I don't know what the great benefit of holding the information back is. Is it a concern for future contracts where, there might be a perception that you may have a career-ending injury somewhere in a locker over here if you do sign with a foreign club in 3, 4, 5 years' time? I don't know what the thinking behind it is, or why players are so protective. It's their prerogative. I don't have an issue with it. Jamie Heaslip was the one that really instigated and looked into that data protection side of things. You would have to imagine, and I don't know this for certain, but it would be very unusual for the Munster medical team not to know the ins and outs of it, and Joe Schmidt as well. You're going to create a pretty bad atmosphere if you're not telling both of those people of what your ailments are, and how can they help you fix it. How can you not give all your information to a physio or to a doctor in your environment and then expect to get back to full fitness? So that's crazy. That's obviously that, it's been kept in house. It's the surgeon, it's Conor, and it's the medical team. But beyond that, he's not wanting to share that information. And like I said, it's his prerogative. I don't know what his rationale or his reasoning for it is, but
should the public know? Should the public know? Though?
No, not necessarily. I get that.
They're paying into games, and
but it's not. But I think they can know about lots of things. But why do they don't own that information? I think your medical history is definitely something that I could see a reason why someone would want to hold on to it. It can be potentially a very private thing. What's to say it was say there's a very embarrassing injury happens to you. I saw someone in the past, an old colleague tore his genitals at one stage. I don't know if the public didn't know that you'd want to share that with them,
Devil's advocate.
No, I know, and I'm just saying, that's...
Yeah.
So it is, it can be, I think it's, in Conor's case, I think he's entitled to it. I just think sometimes it can create more hassle than potentially it's worth.
Well, maybe that doesn't matter.
Johan van Graan didn't know ultimately initially how to deal with it. He's kind of said no comment initially, and now he's saying because Conor doesn't want me to share that information, I can't speak about it. So it is. This is getting more airtime than it ordinarily would. And so I'm trying to see what the upside from Conor's perspective is on it. I don't really see it at the moment, but he knows more about his injury than we all do, and maybe he sees a bigger picture that we can't yet see.
Can Ireland win the World Cup without him?
Yeah, I think they can. For Ireland to win the World Cup, we need a lot of things going, and it would certainly help if you have Johnny Sexton, Conor Murray on the pitch. But I don't think the calibre behind is so far behind that the team would fall apart. Yes, is he one of the best nines in the world? Undoubtedly, probably number 1 or 2, depending on what sort of form Aaron Smith is in. But I think you look at the calibre of Marmion, of how John Cooney is going. Luke McGrath's been firing pretty well. I don't know, does Jameson Gibson Park make the 3-year residency rule in time for the World Cup? I have a feeling he does. So you've got some very handy players that are capable of fitting into the environment, and I think that's what Joe has created. It's players having a seamless ability of moving in, albeit it's hard to replicate the quality of someone like a Conor Murray. They can still do it. It's just it'll be harder.
We'll hopefully be back for the European Cup, and there's no reason to suspect that he won't be back soon. And rugby on Off the Ball is with thanks to Air Sport, the home of rugby in Ireland. So we have matches on Air Sport this weekend. Let's just remind you of the fixtures that we have on tomorrow. Both games, Connacht against Leinster in the 5:15 match. That's at the Sports Ground, and then at 7:35 at Thomond Park, Munster versus Ulster. Did these games have more bite, Brian, when you played them, these inter-pros?
Yeah, they do. I think because there's rivalries for international spots. I think you look at Robbie Henshaw, although looking at obviously Joe Tamani starting, but would Robbie Henshaw like to be playing against Bundy Aki, his old buddy from Connacht? Of course, because both want to lay down a marker. You look at someone like Tom Farrell, who's playing really well for Connacht. He gets an opportunity to play against the incumbent 13 and Gary Ringrose. So there's all those different mismatches around the park that you can even an opportunity of one-upmanship, or to get a tick by your name in Joe Schmidt's handbook. So there's always a little bit more niggle. The rivalries go back a long time.
And we're just talking about niggle there. This Connacht Leinster thing. I think Cian Healy's comments about John Muldoon's conversion not being maybe in the best spirit.
I don't understand that.
Like this is like Leinster have won. They're the European champions.
I don't know why you'd be bringing that back up. He obviously really felt hard done by in that. And at the time, I had no issue whatsoever, watching it. I said, good luck to him. He's played 300 games for his problems. It's not like it's the first time it's ever happened. That happens the whole time. Players leaving, and the game's not in the balance anymore. They've gone and absolutely smashed Leinster that day. And he's entitled to knock over that conversion or give it a go.
Francis. This is the phrase from a movie, lighten up Francis, I think was the phrase. But tomorrow...
but I don't know why. I don't know. I'm surprised, because is that the motivation you need for getting back? By the way, John Muldoon is over in Bristol, and players have moved on. This is a different team. There's a new coach with Connacht. There's too many different variables that it has no impact in my mind. But listen, Cian Healy has found something to motivate himself for the weekend, and good luck.
John O'Brien's back, which is great for him and for Ireland. Can a player, how does a player psychologically deal with being out for so long and the injuries you've had? Do you believe as a player, well, I'll be back to the way I was? Or is there ever a little bit of doubt in the mind?
Yeah, it depends on the injury. I think with serious injuries, particularly, I've never had a knee injury, but I think they take time. You can't come back and be 100%. You just can't. It takes a couple of months usually. For me, with my shoulder injury, when I had shoulder surgery, it took 3 or 4 games before I got a proper clunk on it, and it felt good and solid. I felt very vulnerable up to that. So you've question marks as to whether you're going to be able to do what you did before. But if you're fit and strong and you're hitting all your marks at training, and your skill set is good, and I believe Sean is in the shape of his life, I certainly don't have any fears that he can't go back and hit the ground running. He will be rusty, the odd pass might go down or his skill set mightn't be as good, but that'll come over the course of the next month or 6 weeks. So expect a big impact from him off that bench.
Bundyaki's playing well at the start of the season. How do you see tomorrow going, Connacht and Leinster?
I think it'll be a great game. I was impressed with Connacht against Clonethley. The way they went at them. Bundy had an absolute stormer, but there were others around him too that played well. Farrell, I think, has been really good for them. Marmion was good again. Looks as though his pass has sped up a little bit this year. And it's all to do with the platform that they can give those guys. They look a small bit vulnerable at times at the ruck, and I think Leinster might look to take advantage. I don't know if they were putting enough numbers into it. Clonethley looked as though they were conceding rucks early. I think Leinster will look at that tape and probably get after that ruck a little bit more. But it should be a good contest, and you wouldn't know who to call it. You'd imagine on paper Leinster look better, but Sports Ground's a tough place to go and play now. And Andy Friend's clearly doing a good job. He's given them a lot of confidence to play a brand that they were used to under Pat Lam, and that they came away from a little last year. So it's this season looks bright for Connacht.
Yeah, I think they're getting extra seating, extra terracing there to make it to 8,000 tomorrow. Munster against Ulster. How's the report card from Brian O'Driscoll for Joey Carberry so far? Yeah,
I think pretty good. He always has that magic moment in him. He was one that created one of those Andrew Conway tries. Not only the initial break in the first half against Cardiff, but then quick hands to get him into the corner. I suppose defensively, there seemed to be a fair bit of confusion as to whose man was who, and they got broken a lot of times off first phase. Himself and Clute for the Williams try just before half time, where Halahola went through the two of them untouched. That's obviously just a lack of communication or a lack of understanding as to whose man it was. So those things can be ironed out pretty quickly. It's
nothing fundamental though.
No, they'll be very disappointed with how much they were broken down, and it's rare enough that was it 37 points or somewhere in the vicinity. Munster rarely concede that many, so Ulster could be on for a physical game this weekend. And just looking at those two teams, they've rested a few players. They've got a few injuries as well. So I fancy a big bounce back from Munster, albeit Ulster have been one of the teams in the competition so far.
And Ian Henderson and John Cooney returning, and Dan McFarland, of course, he's well touted before he went to Ulster, and he's proving to have had a good run early on the season to match that. Yeah,
and I was critical of Ulster at the end of last season, and they did seem to be in a bit of disarray with no coach, and question marks behind the scenes of board members, and CEO is moving on. You obviously the well documented court case, senior players leaving. So when you have all those multitude of different issues, culminating or collectively making the picture look really ugly, for them to manage to turn it around in a short space of time.
So how do you see the picture now?
Credit them. Well, I think obviously Dan Farron's come in and done a good job. Simon Easterby was an interim coach. Even that seemed a bit nuts, where they signed a new coach and then he wasn't going to come to January, and they managed to get that job done. But Simon Easterby went in and brought them through pre-season. And they've done a good piece of business in Billy Burns. I think he's played well for them. John Cooney's been a revelation, and they just need a little bit of luck as well. I think this is probably still a building season for them. I don't anticipate, personally any trophies at the end of it. But if they can look to build on how they've started already, and then over the course of the next couple of years look at targeting a trophy, I don't think that's beyond their reach, because they've always had good quality players coming out. I think it's just been the issue of consistency throughout the season. They start well a lot of the time, fall away in the middle of the season, and they're just out of the reckoning by the time business end of the season comes. So now it's just about consistency of performance, and I suppose not getting ahead of themselves. Their fans get a little bit giddy with me sometimes on social media about not praising them. If they maintain their form,
you have to call it like you see it, Brian. You have to call it like you see it.
Don't you just?
So how do you call Munster tomorrow against Ulster?
I think just looking at the two teams, I think, and off the back of last week's result, I think it'll be a home win for Munster, and an opportunity for some young guys in Ulster to play in a difficult environment. But I do see that going Munster's way.
And now you've tasted Le Golf National. Are you hoping for European win? I think they're bouncing back this afternoon.
I saw that they were up in 4 matches on all the foursomes, and
is this something you remember when you were young, watching the Ryder Cup on television?
Oh, God, it's just
the war on the shore and all that.
Unbelievable television. And Sunday, I don't know if there's a better day of viewing on a Sunday when it's close. I think, going back to Medina, like, is there ever better television than that? The way they managed to turn it around. So, in many ways, I hope it's tight, because you don't want, as much as it's always nice to win comfortably. From a spectator's perspective, we want it super tight. We want to go down to the end, and those closing holes, 15, 16, 17.
Did you find the drink at all?
Oh yeah, I found the drink on 15. I had a really good drive, and I'd sculled an 8-iron a bit into the water, and then my partner knocked it into 12 foot.
Brilliant.
So yeah, we dovetailed nicely. But 18 is another brilliant finishing hole. 16 is a great par 3. So they are really picturesque. The only problem is Ryder Cup, statistically not that many matches go down 18. It's a shame, because it's such a golden hole.
On Sunday we'll see a few final groups of the singles go down that. Brian, as always, thanks for coming in. Enjoy the rugby tomorrow and enjoy the Ryder Cup on Sunday.
Thanks, John. Cheers.